Adam Woody, welcome to episode 7 of Build Your Authority.
Joe Pardavia. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you, and we are back. And Adam, you know what's funny? I had never heard of the phrase marketing to the affluent till a couple years ago. You said, hey, Joe, would you mind voicing the audiobook for Dan Kennedy's Marketing to the Affluent? And Dan Kennedy, he's a pretty smart guy when it comes to marketing. So before we get into this, but tell me about this idea of marketing to affluent and why Dan Kennedy thought it was so important for people to give them opportunities in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, well, one of the things that most business owners miss is that the profit in most businesses can be found in their most high-end, affluent customers, right? And so in any industry that you're in, whether it's kitchen and bath products, which Greg Rohl is the expert on, whether it's publishing, which of course I'm an expert on, whether it's automobiles, right? Regardless of the industry, the majority of the profit that any business makes, it's going to be found in their highest spending, highest value customers. And so it's important that if you're trying to scale and grow a business, you understand the power that these affluent customers can bring to your business, not just in growing your business, but in achieving profit and profit goals. And one of the things that I love about marketing to the affluent, and Greg calls it authentic luxury marketing, which he's going to, of course, share with us what that really means and what the definition of that is that it ties in so well with authority marketing. The more authority you have, the more appealing you're going to be to those affluent and luxury buyers in the first place. And so to me, it's such a great tie-in of when you combine authority with affluent and luxury, it's a 1 + 1 = 5.
Yeah, it's funny, Adam, because a lot of stuff we've been talking about on this podcast is how books and the marketing services that we offer and other people offer it's to heighten your authority in a field where you can reach the affluent. Hence, the book, which you built the company on, has such a direct way of dealing with the affluent because you have people that are leaders that want to better themselves, and the book is a way to do so. And we're going to get into Greg's because Greg wrote a book, so we can get into that as well. But tell me about the idea of like marketing to affluent people, but in a way that doesn't feel like you're selling, and hence where the book comes in, right, Adam?
Well, yeah, actually, that's the big idea, is that the higher up in the market you go, the more affluent the customer, the more they don't want to be sold. And where authority comes in is that you're teaching and educating the customer. You're not trying to sell them anything. The more authority you have, the more the customer is receptive to the education you can provide. And the more educated that customer becomes, the more likely they are to buy. One of the famous things that Dan Kennedy would always say, and I absolutely loved it, is he would say the best customer, hands down, is a book buyer. He found over his career that when a prospect would buy one of his books and read one of his books and then contact him, they were going to be a better customer because, one, they were investing in education, they were investing in themselves, and after reading his book, they became much more compliant with the advice and the recommendations that he would provide to them. And so we have to remember that as you go up the food chain in the type of customer you're going after, you really need to remember that they want to be educated. They don't want to be sold. I know Greg's going to talk a lot about that.
Yeah, his name is Greg Rohl. He's a luxury marketing expert, and he spent 3 decades perfecting the art of selling high-end products in a traditionally commodity-driven industry. And if you know fancy sinks, fancy bath stuff, you know the House of Rohl where Greg cut his teeth in. So without further ado, Greg, welcome to Build Your Authority.
Hey, Joe, Adam, great to be here.
And Joe, I'll just say that my wife and I are renovating our house right now. And, I thought I was doing pretty well in the world. And we went to the kitchen and bath store, and we were meeting with the sales rep, and they presented the House of Rohl luxury portfolio of options for our kitchen and bath. And I quickly realized I wasn't doing as well in the world as I thought I was doing.
Well, Greg, that's speaks volumes because Adam is doing pretty well in the world. So before we get into all of it, Greg, let's step back a little bit and talk about House of Rohl. Like Adam mentioned, luxury bath products. And someone has sold a company, Adam, for a lot of money when the release comes out and says that Rohl was acquired by Fortune Brands for an undisclosed amount. Adam, that equals a sick amount of money.
Undisclosed always means an insane amount of money. So yes, let's just all agree on that.
It was a very respectful multiple. Yes.
Greg, you're classy all around, not just your product and your consulting, but the way you speak about it. So tell me about the brand for folks who are uninitiated. Adam got an education on it. I know more about it now, but tell us about the House of Rohl and how that's sort of formed you into what you're doing today and helping to market to the affluent.
Well, sure, and it's a story. We'll talk about storytelling, but it's a family business. Started back in the early 1980s. Our dad, Ken Rohl, was our founder. Spent almost 30 years kind of in large corporate America, building products, steel, cabinetry. Eventually, working for as the VP of Sales and Marketing for a manufacturer of stainless steel sinks and water coolers. We were living outside Chicago. And, we're talking about selling luxury in a commodity market. You'd think of faucets and sinks as being pretty, mainstream. There's nothing really special. And he kind of assumed the same until he was in Europe at a big trade show. And he came across a little manufacturer out of Switzerland that had invented the first pull-out faucet. So it's integrated, the hand spray, and is connected to the faucet. And there's a single lever instead of two handles. And the overall quality of it was, something he'd never experienced. And he realized that there was an opportunity for more like a premier or luxury option in kitchen and bath fixtures in the U.S. And so he talked to this company. He said, look, let me see if we could maybe do an OEM arrangement, and we could present your faucetry alongside our sinks, which are great. And his boss at the time didn't see he was presenting a product that was 4 to 5 times price point higher than what the standard was at the time. So if people were usually paying $50 to $75 for a kitchen faucet, this was going to be coming in at $250. And his boss said something to the effect of, well, it'd be a better anchor for my boat. He didn't really see the opportunity. So this is where the title of our book, The Corporateneur, comes from. Was that after years kind of educating himself and working in large organizations, he became an entrepreneur. As you say, kind of left the corner office for the extra bedroom, and the warehouse becomes the trunk of the car kind of situation. But introducing this product, this luxury faucet product into the U.S. market. And so, I at the time was in high school. So my, earliest working days were kind of alongside and helping out weekends and summers, just, in warehouses or whatever was required. And eventually joined the company after graduating from college in the early 90s. And, with a family business, you wear whatever hats required. So it was a wonderful, lifelong, kind of career experience for me to start in a warehouse and work in customer service, and then moving over into marketing and organizing trade shows and working on collateral and putting ads together and working with PR, and then eventually moving into outside sales, having a territory, managing a group of salespeople across the Western states. And so we built that business from 1983. And then in 2016, we were approached by Fortune Brands. And at that point, my father was in his early 80s, and my brothers were approaching 60. So it was, starting to think about, maybe an exit would be a good idea at this point. And particularly handing off this brand, this company, and this range of products to an organization that understood it, and we had good alignment of values, and so that is now they've continued to grow, and House of Rohl is now an international brand and doing very, very well at our industry trade show this year. In fact, the booth was best in show, so we're very, very proud of that, and as now we're alumni, as we say, but it's great to see that luxury story and that product mix continues to grow and find a new audience.
That's awesome. And so let's speak broadly here, Greg, because we want to connect, marketing to the affluent to building your authority. But how do you define affluent in the context of luxury marketing? What's your?
So again, broadly speaking, we would talk about the luxury, the high end of the market is kind of the top 20%. And when we started, maybe we were looking at 10% market share was considered, would be available. And that, when, if you remember kind of things taking off in housing in the 90s and people were kind of refi rich and that was going on, that kind of luxury audience in our industry probably grew to upwards of 20%. And then, when things 2008, 2009, the recession contracted a bit, but pretty consistently, we're talking about, you can look at, the wealthy from a household income standpoint, maybe, again, broadly speaking, income level, 150,000 and above. We're talking about kind of the, more, let's say there's a high net worth and very high net worth and ultra high net worth audience out there. We would sort of intersect that with not just a demographic, but kind of a psychographic. So we're really looking to connect with a kind of a luxury lifestyle consumer. So this is somebody who not only may have the income, may have the wealth, but really has the right attitude. They love their home. They love to entertain. They love to cook. They enjoy, spa-like experiences. They love travel. And that was the level that we were trying to communicate and connect, the value of our products with those kind of experiences, talk about experience marketing. So that wealthy, affluent consumer kind of customer that you're trying to focus on, again, it's not just about an income. It's not just about a demographic. It's about, what are their values, and are your products or services aligning with their values?
Joe, I love that, because most people, when they think about marketing to the affluent or they think about luxury marketing, they think, well, do they have the ability to spend the money? And you've got to have the ability to spend the money, but you also have to have the desire to spend the money, because we all know people that are really, really wealthy that maybe shop for their clothes at Walmart or at Costco or Sam's Club because it's just not important to them. But they fly private. They don't fly commercial because that's important to them. And so what Greg said is really important when you think about marketing your company, your products, your services to the affluent customers is, yeah, they have to have the ability to spend, but they also have to have the desire to spend in that category. And, one of the things I learned very early in my career is that every person of affluence has, selective indulgences. There's a couple of things that they will just pay through the roof for because it is so important to them. And, what Greg realized is that there are a lot of people where their selective indulgence is their home. And it's their kitchen because they like to entertain, or they're foodies and they love to cook, or, hey, it's the bathroom because I'm going to spend probably more time in my bathroom than any other place in my house. And I want it to be like I'm at a spa at the Four Seasons. And they were able to match that desire with the ability. And so I just think that's a really important distinction that we want to make sure all of our viewers and listeners understand.
Yeah, you know what's also great, Greg, knowing your story, and this is similar to what Adam you went through. Is there's that phrase, "Bring the horse to water," or "Bring the water to the horse." Your dad, Greg, essentially brought the water to the horse. You mentioned talk about growing up in the Midwest, but your family relocated to Beverly Hills area so you could go directly to the customer. And like Adam, when you started Advantage, you were going to trade shows where CEOs and business leaders would go to. So, Greg, let's start with that. Talk about this. Your dad's idea to go direct to the consumer. Literally.
Well, and it wasn't direct. I think understanding your market, understanding who your ultimate customer is. We were, from a marketing standpoint, our company, we were always kind of operating on two levels. In our world, in the world of kitchen and bath building products, there's a very well-established, distribution system. There's channels to the end user. And there are trades involved, right? Plumbing, building trades. There are designers, particularly if you're talking about an affluent homeowner. If they're doing a project, they're probably working with an interior designer or a kitchen designer. And so, as you mentioned, we relocated. We realized that while we love our hometown of Chicago, when you try to introduce a product that's maybe 5 times what people are typically paying, it might be a little bit, you need to find, again, you could say, go, fish where the fish are, higher, or we would say a higher potential market, right? High performing, high potential. So we located to Southern California, and my father, through his experiences in the industry, he knew the players, he knew the kitchen and bath dealers, he knew the wholesalers. And so he had established his authority with them in his previous roles with other companies. They knew him, they trusted him. And so when he came to him with this sort of radical idea of a luxury pull-out kitchen faucet, they would listen, all right? And they had the opportunity. And he very, astutely realized that in that context, we talk about influencers now, influence marketing. The influencers to that high-end homeowner would be the specifier, so the designer, the kitchen designer. So he would load up the car with samples and drive up to Robertson Boulevard here in Los Angeles, where all the high-end retail, there's a lot of high-end retail, a lot of architectural showrooms along that route, and then slowly start placing this product in amongst showrooms that sold European cabinetry, which was coming in, which was high-end, very premium, or more European appliance products that were coming in. And that was where he sort of said this niche. Well, why not the European premium, plumbing fixtures to go along with that? So I think, you lean into the influencers because they're the ones who have the trust, right? They're the authorities with that homeowner. So, and they kind of introduce you. And then, of course, their authority, provides the glow to your product. And I think that we built that over time. So, when we talk about building a brand and building a market position, we started very, organically, and start with those influencers that have the ear of the homeowner, and grow that over time. And your brand value grows with that influencer audience, and then the showroom audience, and then the wholesaler audience. And eventually we were communicating, we were buying ads in Architectural Digest and other shelter magazines, speaking to that end user. But really, it was more about showing our distribution partners that, hey, we're trying to create a little pull through. We're investing on our own brand story and telling our product story to enhance. And that was, again, differentiate, that we were, a brand in the showroom with lots of other products, but they could look at our display and say, hey, that's one company that gets it. They're doing their best to create some energy around their brand and bring people in, or someone comes in, they recognize that brand. Oh, that's that. As I overheard a number of people say over the years, I'd be working in a showroom and someone would come through working with, a client, and they would look over at our display and go, ooh, that's the good stuff. So that's the response you want.
And Joe, one thing that's really important is that when you are selling at the low end of the market, most of your customers are making a decision based on price, right? Maybe they're making their decision based on price, maybe availability, speed, like, oh yeah, we have it in our warehouse, we can have it at the job site tomorrow. But when you're selling things that are 5 to 10 times more expensive than peers, right, or commoditized peers, and you tell your friends what you bought, you're going to either be a fool or you're going to be a genius. And the reason that education-based marketing, which is what authority marketing drives, is so important is because, what Greg was doing is they were educating the interior designers to make them confident in recommending to their client, you should pay 5 times more. And by paying 5 times more, here's all of the extra stuff you're getting with this product, and it's going to make you a genius, not a fool, right? And those things are, first of all, it's Swiss design as opposed to designed, I don't know, in China. Number 2, it is the quality of the materials, which aren't going to wear out. The lifetime of this faucet is 20 to 30 years, whereas the lifetime of that faucet is 3 to 7 years. It's the quality of, design, materials, finishes, etc. And so you've got to educate people as to why it's actually smart to pay more to buy your product. So I just want to link together that the reason that authority marketing and luxury marketing are so important and go together is that when you're charging, again, 3, 5, 10 times more than your peers, you've got to educate people on why that's a smart decision.
The understanding of that, again, is because it's what builds your authority. I mean, to me, I think of authority as trust. Right? You're a trusted expert. You're a trusted authority, whatever subject matter you're speaking to or business you're in. And that, and trust is obviously built over time. But in communicating authority and communicating the value of a luxury option, I think there is something authoritative in really understanding the story behind it. The characteristics that Adam enumerated there, certainly, we ultimately created a definition of what we say is authentic luxury. When we started, introducing our products and one product line turned into 3, 4, 5 as we connected with other manufacturers throughout Western Europe. And we kind of, our brand started to rise. Some of the larger, let's say, commodity brands kind of looked over like, oh, what are they doing? Oh, we should get in on that. And so they started creating their own, sort of sister brands and try to a luxury brand that was sort of, coming out of the same, let's say supply chain, but they rebranded it, maybe some more interesting design, but essentially it was still that what you would call a commodity. It was sort of commodity under the hood. And we realized in the early 90s that we needed to again, differentiate ourselves from just luxury. Because all of a sudden people were saying it's luxury, plumbing fixtures. And then we had to go a step further. So we started using the word authentic luxury. And again, so we wanted to own that concept. And so we worked really hard on defining that. And ultimately we came up with a definition of authentic luxury as being original design. So Adam mentioned, where is this product being designed? So it's an original, it's not a knockoff. Commitment to craft, right? Craftsmanship. And it's coming from a manufacturer that's really, committed to that. And it's part of their heritage. And it's kind of, they care deeply about it. Place of origin. So provenance, where does this product come from? We love to tell the story about, hey, this product you're looking at, let's say this faucet, it has a Italian inspired design because it's designed in Italy by Italians and it's actually made in Italy. And so it has that balance. Or here's a collection from the UK, from England. And this design is kind of Edwardian inspired, right? And that's because the people who design it live outside London. They're surrounded by historic Edwardian buildings. So they understand that. And it's imbued in the design. And it's also manufactured in their factory in the Midlands or outside of London. So, and then even in the US, we've ultimately had a great partnership with a designer that drew on streamlined modernism. So a great era of American design. And we had an American manufacturing partner that was able to execute that. So that's just, again, why people, again, if they're going to spend 5 to 10 times what the average is, this is where they'll see the value. And because it becomes special. And then, when something's in your kitchen, you can do a lot of entertaining, and it's nothing in their hand, people who are proud of their home. And it's lovely to be, you're having a dinner party and someone goes, I love that. Who made that sink? We really introduced like the farmhouse sink design, which is kind of everywhere now. And we partnered with a manufacturer called Shaw's of Darwin. And this is a factory that goes back to the late 1800s, and making these fire clay sinks that take, a month to create. And initially they were like, well, if you want to put the Rohl name on it, that's fine. Like, no. We want that Shaw's original and a little diamond logo, because that's the story of authenticity. And it was interesting. It was amazing how that just connected with, the luxury homeowner, because people would, they might equivocate on some other things, but they wanted that Shaw's original sink, because when people entertain and they saw that logo, they knew the story behind it. They knew that was the real thing. And that means a lot to those people.
Greg, I would love for you to share how the power of storytelling is so integral into authentic luxury marketing. You were indicating just a minute ago that obviously there's the quality of the materials, there's the origin of the manufacturing, there's the history of, we've been creating, clay sinks for the last 200 years, right, in this little factory and, some really cool, quaint village, 2.5 hours north of London, right? Like, all of these things like create this really compelling story that's just cool. And of course, at least mentally, it's like, okay, yeah, it's 5 times as much, but it's made in England, and it's made by hand with these artisan potters that this is all they've done their whole career. Okay, I can justify paying 5 times more for a sink. So talk about the power of storytelling, and also talk about kind of the power of psychology, how when you have that captivating story, psychologically, it says, okay, it's fine to pay more because I'm getting more.
So it's really interesting. In the last few years, the people have really identified storytelling as being so important from a business standpoint. And I think when you're focused on that affluent customer or client, moving beyond just sales and really connecting to what we ultimately say is we wanted to align with their own story. Like we have a story of ourself, of of our life, what we care about. And we always said the stories we love to tell about our own products are great, but if they don't help tell that homeowner's own story, ultimately it's not really, that's not the point. We have to serve our customer's story. And that's where, again, aligning with, values, interests, emotions, and becoming, we were in the plumbing world. You think, again, a commodity, it's what you see at the home center. And, we ultimately realized early on that we weren't competing with other plumbing companies. We were competing with how people can spend their money, right? So we're competing with the jewelry companies. We're competing with travel, cruise lines. We're competing with hotels, restaurants, and if we're competing on, then how are they telling their story, right? How are they communicating their value? So we really became kind of experts in the sort of the language of luxury, if you will. And that's and becoming, kind of a student of how other luxury brands communicated and created that relationship, created that emotional connection. So we would love to see how a car company, Mercedes-Benz, differentiates itself from, a Ford, or how a Tiffany's, creates this connection with their clientele, because their showrooms, you walk into the Tiffany store and it's an experience of discovery, right? We also highlighted, there's a French tableware company called Christofle, you might have heard of. And I remember hearing their CEO a few years back talk about how they were going to connect with the new millennial affluent, and that millennials apparently didn't care about things, they cared about experiences. So they very astutely realized that we need to talk about our products in terms of experiences. Our products elevate the experience of hosting a dinner party. And that was really interesting to us. And we could connect that. We would, get this type of story that other luxury brands were telling, and we could very authentically adapt them to the stories that we were telling, because they were really, it's about connecting. It's that same kind of creative, emotional, experiential connection that you're looking to create with that homeowner. And I think over time, we got pretty good at it. And I think we started to understand, when you say storytelling is important, you kind of need, we would try to formalize it, because it's great if my brothers and my dad and I, we understood it. But if the person who's presenting our product in the showroom, outside of Chicago, if they don't understand what we do, then they're not going to succeed. And so we got very good at telling our story and trying to educate our customers how to do that as well. So we kind of understood that, you have to when you look at a product, looking at through the lens of storytelling, what are its aspects of value? And we would say that's who made it, because it's about people. There's people behind the product, where it's made, what materials it's made from. Maybe that's sort of interesting. And obviously it's going to make someone's life easier, or it's the only one of its kind. It's an original. So those kinds of things, and we would consistently use that formula with, across our various product lines and with our clients, and that further, again, it goes to that, Adam, you're talking about the importance of being an educator. When we were bringing value to the people that we were asking to sell our products, we were educating them on how to be better at storytelling, for instance. And that raised our level of authority, because they knew that we were not only after, succeeding in our business, but helping them do their job and be more successful.
Joe, there's so many parallels here, because, storytelling is a timeless art. Humans for millennia have been captivated by stories. And of course, we've all talked about the people in our lives that we know that are incredible storytellers. And, typically people gravitate towards them. And who doesn't love a good story, right? Whether you're buying plumbing and bath fixtures, whether you're buying publishing services, or whether you're buying a nice meal at a restaurant. And building one's authority, the power of story is equally relevant. And I'll give an example. The experiences that you have build your authority. The accolades that you have received build your authority. The people and brands that you've worked with, especially when they have high authority, we call it authority by association. That authority rubs off on you. That builds your story. And I was out with a potential strategic partner just 48 hours ago. And I was with our chief publishing officer. Our chief publishing officer is a guy named Evan Schnittman. And Evan has a really unique story and background in publishing. And I always give him a hard time. I'm like, Evan, you need to tell your story a lot more often because it's really quite good. And here's a couple of highlights from the story. Number one, he was the first person to license the Oxford American Dictionary on behalf of Oxford University Press, who he worked for at the time. And he licensed that dictionary to the Amazon Kindle and the Apple iPhone. And so everybody that has an iPhone or a Kindle has used the Oxford American Dictionary, and it's solely because of Evan. And Evan has a great story of when he met with the legendary Steve Jobs. Another part in Evan's bio that he doesn't talk about enough is that he was J.K. Rowling's publisher and marketer at Bloomsbury when he was in London. And of course, J.K. Rowling, the most wealthy author ever to walk planet Earth, he worked directly with her and for her. And then when he came back to the US, he had the same role with James Patterson, who I believe is the second wealthiest author walking planet Earth, both, by the way, who are billionaires. And those are just such interesting points that when he tells that story, people immediately stand back and say, wow, you really know what you're talking about. And the human reaction is, I need to straighten my chair and pay closer attention to what you're about to tell me. And so I share that story to say that part of building your authority is figuring out what are those unique stories that you have, and everybody has them, and how do we weave those stories into our biography to build our own authority. So again, authority marketing, luxury marketing, so many integrated parts, and storytelling crosses both in a profound way.
I love that. Love those stories. We got to get Evan on the podcast. He's just so hard to get. He's hard to book. And Greg, before we let you go, I want to talk about the fact that, we during this podcast, we've talked about the fact that many of these folks that become authorities have to put in the time. They got to put in their proverbial 10,000 hours. When did you realize during the course of your career working with the family business, starting from the little kid schlepping stuff around, to becoming an expert in authority marketing to the luxury? Tell me about that. Tell me about how you finally had that light bulb moment, like, oh, damn, I know what I'm talking about.
I would imagine it's not one particular story that stands out, but I think my sense is it's when you realize that you're perceived as an authority when obviously someone else, gives that to you. And there came a time in our evolution where, if you would be at a trade show or you might be at a gathering of your industry association, or you're sitting on a panel and the moderator refers to you as the luxury guy. Or, if my brothers are there, we're the luxury brothers in the context of, kitchen and bath. And I think that was something that you just sort of realize, over time. There wasn't a moment where it kind of sort of assumed the mantle or something. I was thinking about where that being the authority really helped us out. There was a time, this initial product that we brought into the U.S., after about 10 years, they didn't want to do business. They wanted to kind of go direct and kind of cut us out. And they were 80 to 90% of our sales. So very quickly, our company went from, $10 million to $2 million. And we could very easily have disappeared in the early 90s. But because we had established our authority with both our showroom partners in the marketplace and also in the European environment, the export managers, the people that we were working with, knew that we knew what we were doing. We knew how to introduce a European-made product to the American market and tell their story. And then we had the operational excellence and good customer service, and we stood behind our promises. And so we had established our authority kind of on both sides of things. So very quickly, we were able to connect with new manufacturers that had products that we felt would do well in the U.S., and that our authority in the marketplace allowed, again, people to give us an opportunity to present those products. So those are the things that kind of come to mind.
That's awesome. That's a great story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today, Greg. If folks want to get involved with you, I know you have a consultancy company called The Rohl Model. Find out more about, connecting with the affluent audience. Where should they start, Greg?
Just go to the website, The Rohl Model, and that's the Rohl, ROHL model.com.
Awesome. Greg, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, Adam, we talked about a big brand like House of Rohl. Next week, we're going to talk about how you can build your own brand with Natalie Mazzarella, one of our head honcho VPs of media services here at Advantage Forbes Books. What do you think people are going to learn about building their own brand with Natalie?
Yeah, I say all the time, people buy people, they don't buy corporations. And while that corporate brand, that product brand is very important, the personal brand of the person behind it is equally as important. And most give credence to the logo and not to themselves. And we're going to fix that problem on our next episode, where we're going to have Natalie, who's truly an expert on this, really lay out not just the rationale, but the strategy and tactics that one can take to begin building their personal brand.
Awesome. Well, Adam, let me know when your fancy bathtub is in, because I'd love to check it out. But I will see you next time on Build Your Authority, Adam.
Thank you, Joe.